So when last we left off, we basically got caught up to where we were in class the other night, and that involved making a simple index page, making a simple CSS page, making sure they're connected, and then starting to write divs or divisions of the site that will behave differently, show up with a different visual background, have a different size, and so forth. So now in order to complicate things, or rather add complexity, that sounds a lot nicer, I want to find an example of a site that I think looks really nice. So I dug around and found this one right here, futureofwebdesign.com/London-2013. So this is live online. You can look at it as well. And not everything, I'm not crazy about everything about the site, but one of the things I do like is the way that it lays everything out in these really clear rectangular blocks. So even if I don't know how to do some of the higher level coding that leads to this interactivity, like where this thing flips in and out, to begin with, what I'm going to have you guys do is to start from some inspiration like this and then try to build out effectively your own copy, your own quasi-functioning copy of a website, or at least some of the layout that that website takes advantage of. So if I expand the screen, I can see that I have this little box tagged to the upper right hand corner of the screen. I've got a big primary visual area in the lower left, and then I can see how they're sort of stacking things up. There's maybe about a 10 pixel gutter that travels between all these images, and that never changes in size, even though the different images do change in size. So we'll take advantage of that grid. We also have this, this horizontal navigation bar up here, so we can talk a little bit about how to do something like that. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so first of all, let's work on that navigation bar. So let's minimize this and bring up our text wrangler. Okay, so for a navigation bar, we know we want this thing to be horizontal across the top of the screen. So I'm actually just going to copy these 3 lines of code and paste them right in place. So 2 times in a row I have area 1 and area 1. Now if I were to roll this out, I wouldn't see any change because area 1 would just happen twice right on top of itself, so it would appear that I only called to it once. So let's change the div ID to navigation bar, and you'll notice I'm using camel casing, right? So lowercase n and uppercase b, I need to remember that. We're also going to use this common technique known as the unordered list and ordered list. So first I have UL, and I should also point out that the little program that's showing the text that I'm working with, it's not listening when I'm holding down Shift, so if that's confusing, just be aware of that. You'll see, for example, here it looks like I say comma, li, period, even though I'm putting in these angle braces. Anyway, just so you're aware. Okay, so this is the structure of a list where the unordered list tag is only called to once and it contains all of the list elements. So if I take another look at this demo site, where'd that thing go? I can see they've got about, schedule, speakers, press, and partners. So let's copy this line, about, schedule, speakers, press, partners. Okay, about, schedule, speakers, press, and partners, and then I finish off by closing the tag on the unordered list. So let's save that and open it up and see what it does. Okay, so you can see here, first of all, that I'm not sure why we're getting the double bullets. We'll have to take another look at that. But basically, this is the default styling for a list. It gives us bullet points in this sort of gnarly font. Okay, so to start to address this, you can see here that I've forgotten to close my list tags correctly. It's a teaching moment, don't you know? Okay, so we save that. We whip back over here, reload. Great, so we no longer have our double bullets. Now let's get rid of these bullets all together. So we can open up a new rule for navigation, capital B bar, curly brace. And then we can say, for example, list dash style, colon, none, semicolon. Okay, so it looks like that wasn't enough. navigation bar, and navigation bar. You know, it may be that we have to do this to the unordered list itself. So let's say UL instead of navigation bar. Whoa, everything's going crazy. So I'll reload that. Great, there go our bullets. So you can see that it's not necessarily always enough just to target a particular area where something is contained, but sometimes you have to talk to a specific tag. So in this case, UL was the tag that contained the information as to whether or not we were encountering bullets. So in addition to defining a style for UL, I'll define a style for LI, or the individual list elements. And this style will be float is left. You can see by default, every time I have a new list element, it's going to march down the page. But with float left, that's going to come straight across. Okay, so we're getting a little bit closer. Although we can also see that we still have no space at all in between these elements, and that's also an issue. So this is where the CSS box model comes in. Good old W3 schools. And this is a diagram we're going to be coming back to. Well, I don't know if you heard that sneezing in the background. It's my brother-in-law. Okay, so the box model is going to start here with content in the center, and then as we work out, we can see that between the content and the edge of the div that it occupies, we have padding. We have an opportunity to put in a border, and then margin is the thing that pushes away between external elements. So in this case, I've got many little pieces of content like about, speakers, and so forth, and I want those to push out on each other. Therefore, we're looking for a margin. So now I can bring back in my div. Oops, that's hash mark, and that's navigation bar. Although I have a sneaking suspicion, yeah, this is probably actually list elements as well. So let's come down to list elements and say margin is, say, 10 pixels. Save that, come back to my test site. And you see how when I did that, they not only jumped horizontally, but they also jumped vertically. So right now, each one of these list elements is pushing out 10 pixels on every single side, which looks fine for now, but later we'll see that that doesn't always give us the result that we're looking for. Okay, so let's see about turning these into live links that have some kind of hovering characteristic. For that, I'm going to look up CSS pseudo class. Now what pseudo classes do is give us an opportunity to characterize a particular tag that's in a particular state. And you can see here there are 4 basic states to a link. So the link, when it's sitting by itself and has never been visited, is a certain way. In this case, all they're doing is color. A visited link is another way. Mouse over, that's the one that we're really interested in. And selected never really comes up, but I think it's while the mouse is being actively clicked down. So in order to use these, I'll bring them over here into my CSS. And I'm actually just going to tell all of my A's to work a certain way unless those A's are characterized by a hover. Because remember, as we work down the page, we go from broader rules to more specific rules. So here we're saying all A's or all link tags should be like this, unless a link happens to be hovered, and then it should be this other way. And instead of color, I'm going to change this over to be background. And let's start with, say, black. Or actually, this should probably be white so we can actually see it. And then for hover, let's do a color like FAB, which is pink if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to save that and take a look at what kind of result it gives me. Okay, so I've refreshed it and I don't see any change yet, but that's also because these are not yet links. So let's get in here and change that. So under home, for example, within my list tags and around my content, I'll write ahref equals quotes http://google.com end quotes. And of course, you can make this a link to any site that you choose, I also have to remember to close the A tag on the opposite side of the content. Okay, so that should now be a link. I will save and refresh. And you can see here now that this link by default has a white background. When I roll over it, it looks like I'm still getting a change to the text color, so I want to do something about that. Ah, that's because I said color and not background by accident. So refresh, and now when I roll over this guy, his background changes. There's a couple other things I want to get rid of. For example, that sort of ugly default link blue color we want to address. So maybe I do need those pseudo tags back. Let's say a link, a visited, and what was the last one? A active. Okay, so if I save all those and head back to Chrome and reload this guy, wow, it's still that gnarly blue. You know, it may be that I also have to set the link color here. So let's say color, which in this case means the font color, is black. Okay, save that up. And while I'm at it, what I can also do is say for every link, pseudo tag or not, I want the text decoration, or that underline, to be none. Kind of like list style is none. So I save that and refresh it. Okay, that's looking a lot better. Now let's say, for example, if we take a look at the way that this sample is laid out, not too many windows here, we can see that there's a little bit of space between the edge of the text and the outer edge of that visual area that identifies this as a button. So if we think back to our box model, we can see that margin is the thing that pushes out, right? So it keeps two areas apart from one another. But padding is the area that pushes in. So we'll use padding to achieve this kind of visual effect. Okay, so back to Text Wrangler. And we want to go to all of our A's and say padding is, say, 5 pixels. Or maybe I'll do 10 just so you can really see it. Okay, go back to our test site and reload. And now I've got a nice big area that I can roll over with my mouse. And it still works too, right? So I click it, and it's taken a second to load up, but that guy's taken me to Google. So as we go along, we're going to make some of these things functional, and some of them are just going to be visual placeholders. So I'll end this video here and then pick up on how we can start reproducing some more of the rectangular layout on this site.